week in racing. It's time to recap it. And who better to do it than Michael and Magic? Two bros/pros who cover the highs and lows of racing around the globe on every one of their shows. Real fans look forward to these guys and their last stunts, cause they know they're not talking out of their royal ascot. What they say makes sense. So ladies and gents, sit back and relax as Blinkers Off presents The Magic Mike Show, where you hear the experts speak. The Magic Mike Show. Tune into the show every week. The Magic Mike Show. You can trust the show is the bomb because it's being brought to you by RacingDudes.com.
What's up, everybody? I'm Magic.
And I'm Mike.
And this is the Magic Mike Show, and I'm already having to adjust my camera. We're not even doing this live, and we're having technical difficulties.
For some reason, we always start. Huzzah! I forgot that. We always start with Keeneland. Like the last post of Keeneland almost always goes off right when we start this freaking thing. So I'm like trying to watch the TV and pay attention here. It's almost all over the place, man.
even when we're pre-taping it, we have the same issues. Hey, we want to thank everybody for watching this or listening after the fact. We know we normally go live and we love the fan interaction, but sometimes there's special occasions we have to change things up. Today, Racing Dudes Blinkers Off live with John White, which is always an amazing conversation. So they're recording at the same time we are. They're broadcasting because of John's schedule and because of Mike and I's schedule. We couldn't really move it either. It was all right. We'll take a backseat for John White. Blinkers Off, Racing Dudes. Normally, no, get the GTFO. This is our time slot. But for John White, we'll let you have it.
Yeah, I mean, that podcast also got sponsored by the Energizer Bunny because it just keeps going and going and going and going and going and going. So, you know, when you get a sponsor like Energizer, you gotta kind of defer over to them for a little bit.
They started at it was 1 o'clock West Coast time when they started the broadcast. It's 2:30 my time. They're still going, and I told Aaron and Jared I'm gonna set the over under at 2.25 hours just for their broadcast. John has a hard out at 4 o'clock. So I was like, I would guess they'll go about 2.5, but at least 2.25 hours. And it's all great information. You just have to make sure, like, my favorite times to listen were when he would be on for the Kentucky Derby. There was one year I was actually at the beach that day, which was a little brag because I'm in LA. I can be at the beach right before the Kentucky Derby. I was on an airplane once and got to listen to it. So as long as you just set aside the time, there's a ton of good Breeders' Cup information. So make sure you check that out before the Breeders' Cup comes around. But how you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. Yeah, it's been a good day. Been a busy Thursday. Looking forward to getting Keeneland in here one last weekend before we get a little time off for the Breeders' Cup, and then we're really in the home stretch here. I mean, we're talking about 2 weeks from Saturday. We'll be doing a little BC action. So I'm pretty pumped here.
I didn't. Do you have your travel plans yet for that? I'm just wondering when you're going down.
Flying down Thursday, flying back Sunday. So I'll be going down to Gulfstream Park, and we've got some people house sitting for the dog here. So excited about that, and getting to actually do a little bit of a trip here. So it's going to be kind of nice to go down to Gulfstream and play there. I have no idea. I haven't gotten the email yet on what the accommodations are going to be. I'm assuming we're going to be in a ballroom or something like that, and it'll be fun, man. I'll probably be able to be live at a track for the first time in, I mean, I don't even know. It's got to be almost a year probably since I've been at a track live, so I cannot wait to get out there. That's
awesome. We'll have to figure. We got a couple of weeks to try and figure out the planning for that. But do a Friday a show for a Sunday, or Fridays. That's the first day of
yeah. It'll be interesting if we do a live show. If I'll bring all my podcast stuff into Gulfstream Park and I'm broadcasting live from the BC World Betting.
Yeah, I feel like you're probably going to be busy enough. Maybe we record like that Monday as a preview, and then we just say good luck and go through. We do like our Breeders' Cup stuff on that Monday show. It's not like we're going to have a lot to talk about between now and then anyway. So we can just plan on that. But hey, this is the nice thing about the Breeders' Cup coming up and taking the energy away from the major stakes action is that a lot of these tracks, Mike, they're focusing on their state bred programs and really highlighting it. On Saturday alone, we've got Laurel Park is doing a day that's just for the Maryland breds. It's a Maryland Million Stakes Day. Monmouth Park, New Jersey breds. They got 3 big stakes there. And then we're going to Belmont Park because this is Empire Showcase Day. It's all New York breds. Lots of stakes action happening. And I texted you the late pick 4 sequence on Saturday. Whenever we go to Belmont, Saratoga, Aqueduct, it doesn't matter which NYRA track we do. Inevitably, the last race of the day is always some stupid overloaded turf sprint for New York breds. And of course, on New York bred day, why not end the late pick 4 sequence with an allowance turf sprint with 14, 15 horses trying to get into the gate? And I got through the first 3 races. I was like, I'm feeling really good. I got to that last one. I was like, that was so bad.
It means we get a shot at a price. I'm guessing we both went deep there. And secondly,
we did.
At least it's a 9 winners of 1 allowance. Like normally it's like 25,000 maiden. Like normally, like how low on the totem pole can we go?
That's
Here's
true.
the lowest notch. Let's run that race last. This time it's, hey, let's run a decent race here with some good horses, with some upside, some interesting angles that we can look at. So this one's much more handicapable than 25 state bred maiden claimers running for the first time on the turf, right? Like that's a little more difficult to handicap.
Well, but half that field that they're coming out of like N3Ls that they lost. I'm like, even then, I was like, God. But hey, it's going to be fun. You and I have one agreement in the first 3 legs, and then we both go deep, and we actually nailed a lot of things in that last one. But before we get into it, Mike, what's the best thing that you saw this week?
So one of my favorite, you're actually going to be into this. I don't know if you listen to this podcast. One of my favorite podcasts is Binge Mode. They did a great job with Game of Thrones. It's a Ringer property podcast. I actually really like Harry Potter. When I was playing poker, like the number one thing I listened to when playing poker was the Harry Potter books on tape.
While playing poker.
Yeah, well, because most people listen to music, and I find that wildly dumb because most music influences your emotions. So if people are listening to a certain type of music, they play poker differently. So one of the things I'd always ask is, what are you listening to? Because I want to know how their emotions are going to be affected by the music they're listening to at the poker table. Well, I found that if I listened to something that I knew well enough, that I could completely zone it out and it wouldn't affect me emotionally, but also something that entertained me enough to sit there when I could jump in and out of it, that was the perfect mix for me when playing poker to keep the same keel. So I listened to Harry Potter books on tape just over and over again, so it would never really affect me, but it would entertain me. So I found Binge Mode when they were doing Harry Potter. They just announced today they're starting the Marvel universe. So they're doing all of the Marvel movies Binge Mode. So I'm pumped about that. I started a Marvel rewatch on Monday without even like planning on this. And then this came up today. So I'm super excited for Binge Mode Marvel to actually start so I can listen to it and go through them again.
That's awesome, man. I haven't heard about this, but I'm just looking at it right now. The list they have 6 seasons. There's Game of Thrones seasons 1 through 7. Then they did, it looks like something a little different, a little numerous subjects. Then they did the Harry Potter book series, film series, and The Cursed Child, which is the 2-part play that they did. Yeah. And then season 8 of Game of Thrones, which I don't know how. I'll be curious to see if they liked that at all. Then Star Wars, which everything, and then eventually, yes, number 7 is going to be Marvel. Wow.
And it's pretty entertaining because it is a not for kids years type podcast. Like they're very sexually explicit about it, which was hilarious during the Harry Potter part of it because it's all these like teenage kids, and they're discussing what actually happens down by the lake. We'll just put it that way.
Yep.
So it's entertaining in that sense, but it also like they go much more. I'm not as I don't geek out as hard as they do on it, and so they go much more into the theories and the fan theories, the articles, things like that. So you get a lot more contextual context around it. Obviously, contextual context, but anyway, you get a lot more context around the different material. And so I'm excited to hear the Marvel one, just because I'm sure there's a bunch of it that I don't know that they'll be able to introduce me to.
Mrs. Magic and I, probably 3 months ago. Yeah, I think it was like middle of the summer. We started doing a full rewatch of the Marvel movie, starting with the original Iron Man, and we're working our way through. And we got sidetracked. A couple things came up, and then it's Halloween season right now, so we're still kind of working through the horror stuff. But even last night, she was like, we need to get back into it, and we left off with Black Panther. It was the next one on our list, and we were about to watch it. And then Chadwick Boseman died, the guy who plays Black Panther. And then everyone was like, there was all the different watch parties for Black Panther. And we were like, we can't do that right now. We need to separate from this for a little while because it's just going to be too sad watching that movie. But that's great.
Yeah, these were my go-to airplane movies. So I've only seen a lot of the Marvel movies on an airplane. So I've never seen them in theater, on a TV or anything. So I started doing a chronological rewatch. So the first one's actually Captain America because that's the oldest, like from a date rewatch. Yeah. And so I've been doing that and going through from a date perspective, which has been kind of fun. I think I just finished Thor, and so I'm on to the next one now. And so it's like we're in like the late 90s now, and so it's kind of cool to see them in that order because characters appear in a certain stretch, and they do a really good job of actually keeping it chronologically strong as you go through the process. So it's been fun. And like I said, a lot of it is like re-experiencing these movies for the first time because I saw them on an airplane when flying across the country versus, see them in a more theatrical setting. For
the nature of your job, I realize that that's why you see a lot of the movies on airplanes because at least before COVID, you traveled quite often. But I was just every time I feel like I ask you about a movie, you're just like, yeah, I caught it on this airplane. I was on Delta flight from here to there. But you're making good use of your time on the airplane. Did you see? I think it was maybe earlier this year. I don't know. Time calendars, everything's gone. There was a internet person who made they literally took every scene from every Marvel movie and put that in chronological order. So like if a movie has flashbacks or if they skip ahead time or if there's like 5 years between movies, they literally spliced every scene together. And it's like 54 hours long. The amount of production time alone to do this as one person is like, it had to have taken a year to do.
So how do they handle like the flashbacks? And this, we're way off topic here, but how do they handle the flashbacks in like Endgame? Because those have like people, those are kind of both, if you know what I mean. Like,
oh, that's a good.
Yeah,
I don't know. I would purely guess that they. Oh shit! I don't know.
Because it would ruin the story if you saw them early.
Yeah. Well, it's not something you're supposed to watch if you've never seen before. It's just more like a fun little thing. But
yeah. Anyway, all right. Yeah. Marvel binge mode. Check it out, people.
That's awesome. Hey, then usually I'm the one that brings up pop culture stuff, and you're like, hey, in sports, things that our listeners usually care about. I've got two for you, and one of them is going to be sports. I had one set aside. I was all planned on. Then I saw this. You know who Woody Page is?
Yep.
Long time Denver sports. I love Woody Page. I don't take him seriously, and I think that's why I love him. I saw this tweet today with the arena in Denver. So first of all, it's called the Pepsi Center. So when the arena in Denver opened, I called it the Can, or the center for the Avalanche and the Nuggets. The vice president of Pepsi, he doesn't call him out, but the vice president of Pepsi called Woody and ordered him to call it by Pepsi because, quote, we spent millions and you must use our name or we will get you fired, end quote. I told him to go do himself, and I'm sure that's not exactly what Woody Page said. And then after that, he said, every time since I've covered a game at the Can, I've taken Coca-Colas in my briefcase. I just like that little bit of spite. Like, nobody cares about Pepsi and Coke right now. Woody Page is like, F Pepsi. I thought it was funny.
Yeah, like I don't understand. I hate like you're gonna get me fired because like that's just kind of a dick move. Like really, like you're gonna threaten a dude's job because he's making a joke about the arena. Come on.
Well, even if it was like a staff writer who's like, 25 working for the Denver Post for like $20,000 a year, that's the kind of person you can intimidate. Woody Page doesn't give two shits what you think, because even if you got him fired from the Denver Post, which didn't happen, there's a million other broadcast centers that would drop dead to try and get him because he just has that much of a following and a gravitas. So
yeah, like your best result is he doesn't become vindictive. That's your best result. Like, because if I'm Woody Page and I think like Woody Page, I'm going to just like literally like, oh, really? I'm going to mention it every chance I get now. I'm going to make this worse for you because you did this.
And he's someone who's on Around the Horn all the. I don't know if he still does. I stopped watching Around the Horn a little while ago, but he used to be on Around the Horn all the time and all those big ESPN platforms. So yeah, you're right, Mike. That's not the person you want to try and upset. The other best thing that I saw, you remember when you were a kid and you'd get like the toy catalogs in the mail when it was Christmas time, and you get so excited. And then we get older, and like now with the internet and with everybody doing Amazon, it's like my wife every year. So I was like, oh man, I remember getting that and circling things. And this is what you wanted. And you tell Santa, we got this in the mail. This is from Amazon.
Oh,
this is genius. This is low-key genius because everybody's all about nostalgia for especially our generation now. So this is Amazon's holiday wish book. There are stickers. There's little Christmas stories in here for kids. There's if I can find it. There's a maze that I did.
Amazon. WTF? I got a kid and I didn't get one. Why is Magic getting one? Come on.
That's a good point. We buy a lot of. We talked about before on past shows. The Lego sets, the big Lego sets. Every third page has something Lego in here, which I swear that they put this together based on our Amazon Prime browsing history. But it's literally a freaking toy catalog, and there's QR codes on every page. Like 4 items. You just scan that QR code. It'll pull it up on the Amazon app for you so you can put it right in your cart. Amazon, you guys are geniuses.
Now I'm pissed at Amazon. We bought diapers from that freaking place for 2.5 years. You're not going to send us a catalog? Come on, we have a 2.5-year-old if you do some research, which I'm sure you're doing. Like I guarantee you Amazon knows.
Of course. That. Yeah. So this came in the mail and I was like, I opened it. I was like, this can't be what I think it is. And I started looking. I was like, oh my God, I spent like 20 minutes last night going through it and maybe circling a couple of Lego kits that I want.
There you go. Just rip off the pages, put it under Mrs. Magic's pillow and call it a day.
There you go. All right. On today's show, we're going to look at the late pick four sequence at Belmont Park on Saturday, October 24th. I got excited thinking about the toys there, which is going to be a part of the Empire Showcase Day. Let's get into it, Mike. Riders up. All right, Mike, kicking things off for the late pick four sequence at Belmont Park on Saturday, October 24th. Race 8 on the card. This is the $150,000 Mohawk Stakes, field of 7 males, 3 and up, plus 1 main track only entry. We checked the weather. It's looking like everything's going to stay on the turf. They should have sunny, partly cloudy, so we're going to ignore the MTOs in these races here. They're going to mount a 16th on the inner turf course, which is like a 1 3/4 turn race. The finish line's halfway down the stretch. It's a very, very quirky setup here. Favoritism is on the number 7. Some like it Hot Brown at 9-5. His Mike Maker stablemate, the number 8 Field Pass, is 5-2. You also have the number 6 Rinaldi at 3-1. Where are you going on top?
Look, man, I went through this, and there's a little bit of speed in here, and some like it Hot Brown wants to be on the lead, and but when it comes down to it, isn't he just the best horse? I mean, for me, I really couldn't find a way to completely fade this horse. I think Some Like It Hot Brown is the logical winner of this race and is going to be my top pick in this spot. If you want to start a $5 ticket, this is a place where I do think you can single. I try to get a little creative. I ended up going 3 deep on a 50-cent ticket just to add a little bit of value. But if you look at the races that Some Like It Hot Brown's coming out of, they're much stronger than this. If you look at the tactical ability from a speed perspective on this course, you got to think he's going to be able to handle the distance. 4 races at the distance. He's got 1 win in 3 seconds. Belmont, he's hit the board both times he's been here with 100 buyer. There's a lot you got to like about Some Like It Hot Brown, even though I don't love sucking down a short price on a horse that doesn't seem to win all that often.
Yeah, he was my top pick here too, and there's a big class drop. I mean, he was, dating back to March. He was in the Kentucky Cup Classic Stakes at Turfway Park, Turfway Park, and then he, Grade 2, Grade 1, Grade 2, won the Grade 2 Bernard Bruce Handicap. That was the race I believe that Holiday was supposed to go to the lead, and they just strangled him, and it didn't work out very well. But the fact that he's, a win in 3 seconds, he's hit the exact in all 4 starts going this distance, I think is a big key. I don't think he's necessarily need the type. If you look back at his 2019 races when he's a 3-year-old, he won 2 stakes races, stalking the pace and then jumping when he needed to. Did it again back in February of this year. I'm with you. I hate that price, but I'll just tip my hand. I use the top 3 horses that I named, so 6, 7, 8 here. I think especially with that finish line being moved up, I want someone who's going to be a little closer on the pace. That's why I liked Rinaldi. This horse has been progressing very steadily as a 4-year-old. Gets a 2nd place when he makes his 2020 debut over this course and distance. It's a good 2nd. He then gets a 92 buyer when he wins doing the same thing. And then he wins the West Point Stakes, gets a 99 buyer. This horse is very steadily improving. The only time he's missed the board was the Grade 3 Saranac when he was a 3-year-old. And the 2 horses ahead of him, they were both next out winners. So, 2 of the 3 horses were ahead of him. So Luis Sai is picking up. I know you didn't use Rinaldi though. Why? I
think that Some Like It Hot Brown is just a better version of Rinaldi. And so for me, I didn't see a point in using both of them. The last buyer, I think, was a little bit weak it's a little unapplicable to this specific circumstance because it was over a good turf. If you look at his best buyer the previous year, also over a good turf. So you saw his best buyer as a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old, now both over non-firm goings. We're projected to get a firm turf on Saturday. If he goes back to that 92 or somewhere around there, he's got 0 shot at Some Like It Hot Brown. He's got to actually improve off the 99 to get him. And if you look at the time in that race, I mean, he went 25, 50, 113, was able to then run pretty well after that. I think that slow early fractions was the reason he was on the lead and be able to continue on with it. That specific day at Saratoga, we were seeing turf being favored to the front runners. So everything to me plays toward that race being a little bit of a false positive in ability. And so I'm going to say that Some Like It Hot Brown is a better version of Rinaldi. And I'm just going to leave him off my ticket. I agree with you that the 8 is another logical horse. I had the 8 as the first horse off my ticket here. I decided to try and find a couple other prices around that I could. And I actually went to the 2 horses that ran behind Rinaldi in that last race as the 2 horses I thought were legitimate prices. I'm going to start out with the 5-horse Therapist, who doesn't like a good turf. Actually regressed every time it ran on a good turf. So it went from a 95 down to an 89 when it was a 4-year-old. This last time out, it ran a 98 at Saratoga, regressed down to a 94 when the good turf came out. We're going back to a firm turf. I think you're going to have a little bit more of pace presence. I think Therapist is a really logical horse here at 6-1. The Clement barn has been on fire for the last 2.5 months. We get Irad Ortiz up on the mount, so I think that's also a strong angle. And this horse should keep improving here in the 5-year-old season. I think that specific day, Rinaldi had a huge advantage from a pace perspective and a condition he likes over a horse that you're going to get a larger price on that's going to go back to the condition they like and have the better pace set up today with Therapist. Other horse I'm using is Dot Matrix, who was right behind or right there with Therapist, actually beat him by 3/4 of a length and ran second in that race. I'm a little concerned about the distance here, or where I would be compared to the last three. But this horse is 5 for 18 at the distance, 3 for 15 at Belmont, likes the distance, likes Belmont. You get Brad Cox and Lascano up. I think this horse is going back to State Company now for the second time in a row. But again, that good turf wasn't necessarily what this horse wanted. So I'm going to get a better price in both of these horses, the 3 and the 5, against a horse I think is beaten by the 7 and the 6. So hopefully I can get one of those two numbers home to start this thing off with a little bit higher of a price than one of the 3 favorites.
I went back and forth on Rinaldi and Therapist. Therapist is a horse I've followed. I remember when this horse was winning stakes as a 2-year-old. He's won stakes at 2, 3, 4, and 5, which is just I don't care even if it's at state bred level.
Hard to do.
That's damn impressive. My concern with Therapist and what tipped the scales, he's never won beyond a mile, and he hasn't won beyond 7 furlongs in over 2 years. And so the distance issue, when I know that I'm going to be able to handle the distance with a horse like Cross Border or some like a Hot Brown, that's why it tipped the scales. But Dot Matrix, you've also got the Brad Cox barn, which has been red hot at Keeneland. Eventually you would think that would translate up to Belmont Park as well. Jose Lascano was a much more than capable rider. So I don't have any issues with where you're going with those two in terms of, glaring issues. It's just, they were horses I considered. I just like the other ones better. I
didn't mention as well, Therapist is actually 5 for 9 at Belmont. So
yes,
the horse loves the racetrack as well, which I do think is a key. You're right about the distance, struggled going a little bit longer, but did run well going 1 1/8 and a mile on the Belmont track. And the Belmont track, of all of the tracks you think of, because of this is a 1-turn mile and 16th, favors those horses that struggle a little bit more to get that longer distance. It might be one of the reasons why Therapist does so well at this specific track.
Cross Border, my first thought was, this might be too short, because you look back at his past performance and you see, he's in Manhattan, which is 1.25 miles, the Sword Dancer 1.5 miles, the Joe Hurst Turf Classic 1.5 miles. Well, he's 2 for 3 at this distance, and he's done 2 starts for Mike Maker since joining his barn at this distance, and he's won both of them. So I'm not too worried about that. Jose Ortiz knows this horse well. Look, I think this really comes down to a matter of which you're looking for a little bit more of a price. How strong or not do you feel about these ones? But we definitely agree. Some like a Hot Brown is going to be the horse probably to beat in this spot, and that 9 to 5 price, I don't think we're going to get that on him.
No, I don't think so either. And I think Cross Border makes legit sense as well. I'm taking I'm taking a little more of a swing than with the 3 and the 5 than I want to with the 8. The 8 would be my next horse in, like I said, but I couldn't quite go that deep here because I want to spread out in the last.
I will say it's going through. I have a newfound respect for the New York bred program, because some of these stakes races, I'm like this one. I was like, I forgot that horse is a New York bred. He's a graded stakes winner. So it might be a state bred day, Mike, but the horses are definitely showing up with some good talent in these races. So that's at least exciting.
We talked about this last week. I think maybe it was on Monday even, how good the New York program is now and how many people want to breed there and how the sales are improving. And same thing with California because of these purses you're getting inside these specific events.
Well, we haven't talked about, but Lauban, freshman sire in New York, that Winstar's already bought him. You can't, you've got I think they've got limited seasons left for him to stand in New York and qualify as a New York bred. He's going to Kentucky because just of how well he's doing as a New York stallion.
Yeah, and it's amazing. I think you're going to see that with some other ones. It's fun too to be able to see some of these stallions like Freud, who just show up every single time you look at one of these races. So Freud, we're going to see all over this page and these pages on Saturday.
We'll move on to the second leg of the late pick 4 sequence at Belmont Park on Saturday, October 24th. Race 9 on the card. This is the $125,000 Iroquois Stakes. Field of 10 fillies and mares 3 and up, going 6.5 furlongs on the main track. Newly Minted, the horse on the rail, is your favorite at 5-2. Plenty of price options available here. I did use Newly Minted, but she wasn't my top choice. I think there's actually a 5-1 shot that I love here. But what about you? Where are you going on top?
I'm throwing Newly Minted on top because I do think that this horse is the best horse in the race. 6.5, I think, is one of the keys here. The distance that we're going. I think you got a lot of horses that are good at 6. I think you got a lot of horses going good a little longer. I think you got to find that sweet spot. Newly Minted kind of do it all and has been doing it all in the state bred program consistently for the last, I don't know, a year and a half now, just jumping in and out of these overnight stakes races. Was able to win 3 of 3 state bred races in a row last year. In 2019, won 4 overall state bred stakes in 2019. Has come right back and has run really well. Just missed to More Mischief, just missed to Clemson Front, both times as the favorite. Last time out was able to win one of these at Saratoga. Now he gets second off the layoff later in the 4-year-old season. This horse has tactical speed. 6.5 is fine. A mile is fine. 6 furlongs is fine. But I do think the 6.5 distance fits newly minted really well. Inside draw is not a worry to me because you have tactical speed here. If Lezcano wants to go, he can go. If not, he can sit right behind, get a nice trip around the turn and pop through the rail or out in the 2-path. So I do like newly minted quite a bit, but the other must use for me was actually 15-1. I'm going to go to the 4-horse Espresso Shot. I was really surprised to see this morning line. Look, the last 2 races are a mess, but they're a mess for a reason. I mean, they came out and they tried open company with this horse, not state bred. $62,000 non-winners of 2 open company at Saratoga. That's a tough level. Like those are not easy horses to get by. It was first start later off the layoff, and look, that was a rough race for this horse. They tried turf. That race got rained off the turf, going 1 1/8 miles, which is too far for this horse, especially on dirt. Doesn't run very well, but he's 2-1 in that spot. Bobbled at the start, had to check. Then you go to the next race. They ran on turf. Guess what? The horse didn't like turf that much. Let's get back to dirt now. Let's look at what this horse has been able to do at dirt, going 1 mile and 7 furlongs, consistently good efforts. I think this horse has some upside. You've got speed going longer, which I love, going 6.5, because when everyone else is tiring, this horse is going to be running right on by. You got Jorge Abreu, who is a trainer that I respect, and you got John Velasquez, who picks up the mount. That's a lot of positives for a horse that's 15-1 on the morning line.
I couldn't get to her. You make all great points. I couldn't get to her just because I don't think that anything on this page doesn't win this race. I don't think anything in her past form. So if you're expecting improvement and getting back to what she's good at, Velasquez jumping aboard is a huge positive, and it is what made me look twice at this horse. The fact that she couldn't get to newly minted several different times when she's tried, and then newly minted isn't my top pick in this race, I had to pass on her. But you brought up good points. Newly minted, dude, this exacted 9 of 11 starts. I mean, this is a damn good horse. Linda Rice, I think, is going to win this race. I just don't know if it's going to be with that horse. I love the 5-horse Prairie Fire. I was a little surprised you didn't use. Jose Lezcano jumps on the 1 when he could have theoretically ridden the 1 or the 5. So that's another thing going for newly minted. But I like Prairie Fire. Look at those last 2 races. 85 by her career best. 81 followed it up very well. What's the difference? Blinkers. She suddenly added blinkers to this horse, and this filly has suddenly turned into back-to-back career best buyers. I'm willing to bet that she's going to continue doing strongly with the blinkers on over a distance that she's never missed the board, including 2 wins and 5 starts. The horse that was second to her 2 back when she wore blinkers for the first time came back to win a second time. And the horse that beat her, Motivated Seller, that's a pretty good Chad Brown horse that beat her in open company. So I think that this is a good spot. Eric Kinsell rode this horse several times, or at least twice, got second, beaten a half length in the better of those 2 efforts. So I'm not worried about the jockey drop off so much here. I really like Prairie Fire. Why did you not?
I thought this was clearly the worst of the 2 Linda Rice horses. And I like the running style that would win this race for Prairie Fire would be identical to the running style for Newly Minted. And I think Newly Minted is a better version of Prairie Fire. And so it goes it's ironic that it goes back to that same type of handicap last race where, look, if you told me who is more likely to finish in the exacta, Prairie Fire or Espresso Shot, I would take Prairie Fire. Who's more likely to win the race? I would take Espresso Shot, right? I think Prairie Fire is a great underneath use horse, but less likely to end up in the winner's circle.
Speaking of good underneath horses, I'm not using the 3 Fair Regis, but you are. And I thought this horse, if you're playing an exotics like tri boxes or something, you have to use this horse in those tri boxes. 4 seconds from 9 starts at this distance and a win in a third to go with it. 10 for 13 on the board at Belmont Park. Runner up in last year's event. I don't feel personally that the 2020 buyers are good enough to win this race. And coincidentally, the 2020 buyers are when this horse was no longer with Jason Service. But she didn't have a huge drop off, which is what we were expecting to see with a lot of those horses. And you are using her with Irad Ortiz Jr. staying aboard. Talk about Fair Regis a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, one of my keys to this one is this horse is coming from open company. Again, we're coming from that 62,000 non-winners or 2 at Saratoga, which is a very, very tough division to be competing in. And then going into the state bred competition, like you said, she ran second in this race last year. That was at 7 furlongs. Today we're going 6.5. She actually took the lead down the stretch in that race, and then got caught by our Supernova and was the favorite at $2.30. So this is where she fits. And guess who was riding there? Irad Ortiz as well. If we have any improvement off these last couple buyers, which I'm not sure we're going to see, but I'm hoping we can push it up a couple points, this horse fits really, really well. I love the Atras barn. He's done awesome for this last meet, 26% with 6 winners and 23 starts. Irad's at 26% as well. The team the two of them up, they're over 30%. I mean, there's a lot of different angles for this horse running big back in state bred competition. We've been talking about how good that state bred program is, but when you compare it to Open Company, non-winners at 2 at Saratoga, which is one of the tougher allowance levels in the U.S., you're definitely seeing a comparable or drop in class from an Open Company non-winners at 2 to a state bred 125K overnight stakes race.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And on a similar note, we'll get to my top pick, who we haven't even talked about, going all the way to the 9, Timely Tradition at 5-1. Since Ray Handel claimed this horse for $25,000, 5 starts, 4 wins. The one time she lost was 2 back at Saratoga. Joel Rosario was aboard, secondary market beater. Again, that's a pretty good Chad Brown filly that got her. Racing against Open Company allowance there. It was the non-winners of one other than, so it wasn't the high yours. The optional 62, I think, is a little bit of a higher level there. But the fact that this horse has won 4 or 5 starts since joining the barn, if you take out that one defeat, every buyer has been between 81 and 86. I like that Dylan Davis has ridden this horse twice and won twice, because this is the New York jockey colony. You've got the Ortiz brothers, you've got Rosario, you've got Velasquez that you're facing all the time. And yet Dylan Davis was able to ride this horse to 2 wins, including at Saratoga last time out. I think that she's got great tactical speed. I like the outside draw. And that first win after Ray Handel claimed her came at second win came at Oaklawn Park against Starter Allowance Company. We've talked all year about how those Oaklawn Park horses, wherever they go, they're really tough. So she's my top pick. Tell me why I'm wrong.
Well, the main reason is she's coming out of non-winners of 1 instead of non-winners of 2. So I think this is a step up in class. You're going to have to repeat or be a little bit better than that last out effort. I agree with you on the numbers back at Aqueduct as well as Oaklawn Park, but she was a favorite in most of those races. And she was expected to win and kind of performed as you would expect. She's going to be 5-1 here. And so I'm not sure that I love her at that price with a step up in class when you have other horses taking a step back in class. And there's a big difference between that non-winners of 1 level and the non-winners of 2 level. A lot of times those non-winners of 1 races, you see quite a few horses that get bet heavily, especially at Saratoga, off maiden breaking wins. And you see some horses at a little bit longer prices pick up the pieces because it's these maidens that aren't able to progress first time against winners. That's kind of what happened in my mind for Timely Tradition last time out when she was able to win non-winners of 1 Open Company. This is a tough spot to come right back in and face a stake spread company where she's facing horses that are winning non-winners of 2. So she's facing horses that have already graduated the condition that she's not even tried yet. And for me, that's where one of those big, this is a jump up. And so I would want to demand value. And I couldn't get to the 5-1. All that being said, I was 1-4 as the must use, 3 is the next up, and 9-2 on my deep tickets. So okay. I had her right there, I had her right there in the list, but just couldn't quite get to putting her on the ticket.
We'll move on to the third leg of the late pick 4 sequence at Belmont Park on Saturday, October 24th. This is the $175,000 Empire Classic Handicap. This is pretty much like the Breeders' Cup Classic for New York breds. You got a field of 8 males, 3 and up, going 1 mile and an eighth. It's a 1-turn mile and an eighth at Belmont Park. Favoritism is on number 3, Funny Guy at 2-1. Number 2, Mr. Buff is 5-2. You and I both agreed on both of those horses. I went 3 deep, but I'll let you kick things off talking about the 2 we agree about.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and be a chalk-eating weasel here. Like, I really tried to find ways around these 2 horses, but let's face it, Mr. Buff is the best horse on the lead. He loves the distance, 9 for 14, loves Belmont, loves this 1-turn configuration, the 1 mile and an eighth, and the best closer is clearly Funny Guy. And so if you get pace pressure on Mr. Buff, Funny Guy's going to pick up the pieces. If you don't, he's going to wire the field. So I don't know how you beat them both. And that was my biggest concern. I would love to single one, but I'm not really sure which one to single either. It would probably be Mr. Buff for me over Funny Guy, but really, this is just a play 1A and 1B and move along and just try and find prices around these 2 horses because I don't see you beating them both, and I'm not sure how to separate them. If you got a big opinion here, go ahead and single. I would normally recommend singling, but I sat there and stared at this for a good 15 minutes, and I'm like, yeah, I can't figure out which one to single, and I don't want to blow this whole ticket because I only use one of these 2. And so I was able to get a $54 ticket in here and use them both. If you want a single here, you could add the 8 in the first leg, you add the 2 and the 9 in the second leg, and play all 6 of mine in the third leg and still get a relatively cheap ticket. I just couldn't find a way to single either one of them.
I agree with you on everything there. These are both. I think if you're going against either one of these horses, you're just trying to look for value because their forms tell you they should be the 2 favorites in this race. Yeah. With Mr. Buff, this morning when I first started handicapping beforehand, I was reading the NYRA press release, and John Kimmel wasn't sounding that confident in Mr. Buff. And then I think this was from a couple of days ago. And then I read the one that came out today after I handicapped, and John Kimmel said that Junior Alvarado, who's his regular jockey, also exercises him in the mornings. After that latest work, Junior was like, this horse is as best as he's ever been. So because at part I was like, oh, hey, if he's actually trailing off and John Kimmel thinks that this might be the end for him, which is literally something he said, that he might need to retire. And then he reversed form and said that. I was like, oh, shit, well, I have to use him. So gonna play him. He is the defending champion. You have to respect that. Look at it. So if you look at his racing history, he's been going against a lot of top. I mean, he was overmatched in the Woodward, the Clark, the Suburban, the Whitney, graded stakes races. But I mean, first of all, it was improbable by my standards to beat him last time out. So they went to the Whitney also because there were no New York bred stakes left for him. And that's also why you haven't seen him since August 1st. Nothing's wrong with the horse. They couldn't find a spot for him to go that fits. So he shows up here. I'm a little concerned about him carrying 126 pounds, the high weight in the field, going this kind of distance. But this horse is a pro. The only horse who's beaten him in his last 6 state-bred stakes attempts is Funny Guy. You're going to use him. Velasquez getting aboard. We're losing Rosario, but Velasquez getting aboard. That's a pretty even mix. Some people would say it's an improvement. This horse won the Albany at Saratoga against state-breds last year, so he can handle the distance. All that said, do you want to guess who my top pick is?
Oh, man. Well, it's either Chestertown or Bankit. I'm going to go.
It's not either one of those, but I was hoping I was going to get you to guess Chestertown.
Oh, I'll go Seafoam.
It is Seafoam. Yep. Joel Rosario is staying with Seafoam. He's staying with Christophe Clement. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I read that the exact same way. He didn't have a choice. He had to go with Christophe Clement here.
Even if you look at the rest of the card, Rosario's with Clement on a lot of horses, including for this ownership group.
Yeah, they've had a nice little run since Saratoga.
Well, he's had a nice run, and this is a Medaglia d'Oro New York bred. We talked about this before. Find horses that are sired by non-New York stallions, like top-end stallions, like Medaglia d'Oro for New York bred. I was like, geez, okay, well, that alone caught my attention. Well, you scratch out the Aqueduct race at the beginning of 2020. I'm just going to blame that on the horse really not liking the slop. Rosario's ridden the last 2, 90 Beyer, 93 Beyer. Both of those, he's got 2 wins against Open Company, including the last one, which was an optional claimer, 62,000, which you were just telling us about. I like the Rosario's here. This horse seems like he's in his best form, and Clement is very patient and very careful with the horse. So I would expect that as a 5-year-old, he's blossoming perfectly right now. He's going to need another step forward in order to contend, and you're probably going to tell me that he's a lesser version of Mr. Buff, but he is my top pick, and at 4-1, I love it. Also, real quick, I forgot this note. Don't forget, Joel Rosario and John Velasquez have the same jockey agent. So the fact that Rosario came over here, Ron Anderson put John Velasquez on the other horse, I think you might tip on something.
What's that, buddy?
Did we have a delay?
Yeah, no, I'm good.
You didn't. I was talking about Seafoam. You don't have anything to say on Seafoam?
Oh, I didn't know you were done talking about Seafoam. The last thing I heard was you talking about the jock agents.
Oh, yeah. I said one last thing. I'll talk about the jock agents.
Yeah.
Velasquez and Rosario have the same agent. So, I think 3 and 7, those were my top 2 choices here.
Yeah, I mean, Seafoam is the nail to Mr. Buff's hammer. He's beaten him by 18 lengths the 2 times they faced each other. So if you can just explain how they're going to flip 9 lengths, go ahead and we'll play Seafoam. But
because he's at his best right now. He's peaking right now, whereas Mr. Buff has always been at that level. Okay. Yeah.
So I will say you're right. He's peaking right now. He's about 4 lengths behind Mr. Buff instead of 9. Congratulations, Seafoam.
All right. Well,
you know what? I will give you Mr. Buff. I'll take Mr. Buff minus 3.5 lengths against Seafoam.
I don't even know what you mean by that.
You get Seafoam plus 3.5 lengths. So Mr. Buff has to beat him by at least 3 3/4 lengths for me to win the bet.
No, I'm not touching that.
But he's your top pick, and you're not even like Seafoam's your 3rd choice.
No, I'm not doing it. Listen, This is what's going to happen. You're going to keep putting up all these bets, and I'm going to just sit there holding on to your money until there's one that I'm like 1,000% confident in. That's the only time I'm going to pull the trigger. I'm Dutch. I'm very protective of my money.
That's pretty much the most lame thing I've ever heard.
Well, Mike sits there and stews a little bit. We'll move on to the 4th and final leg of the late pick 4 sequence at Belmont Park on Saturday, October 24th. Race 11 on the card. This is the one I talked about at the top. Field of 12 males, 3 and up, plus 1 also eligible, plus 2 main track only entries, going 7 furlongs on the outer turf course. Favoritism is on the number 7, Advanced Strategy. Mike, I went 40. You and I are in agreement with all 4 of those. Do you want to talk about Advanced Strategy first, or who was your top pick?
Well, my top pick in here was actually a price. So I thought this was where you could start spreading out a little bit more. I'm going to go to the 11 horse. On the Couch is my top pick. Magic, he's so deep in here. Magic doesn't even have him on the screen currently in the little scroll down box. Look, I'm a sucker for Jorge Duarte Jr. If you've watched the show, you know that. This is a Colts Neck horse. They had this horse run in a maiden special weight at Belmont going 6 furlongs. Horse didn't run a step in June. Come back for its second start, drop it down to maiden claim in. Look at that jump. 51 to 74 buyer. Notice the blinkers. This horse improved quite a bit with the blinkers. Now you get second off the layoff, second time blinkers. Yes, it's a big step up in class, but let's be frank. This isn't a bunch of world beaters here. Like this is, that 74 buyer already fits. Now you're going to get second off the layoff. You're going to add John Velasquez for Manny Franco, what I believe is an upgrade, and you're going to get Duarte. I think this is a really good spot for the 11 horse at 12 to 1. I like the fact that the 11 is tactical. So there is some speed there, so it shouldn't be too far off the lead. And I think the 7 furlongs should be no problem. We talked about Freud earlier, or at least I did. This Freud stands for 6,500. This horse sold for $110,000. They thought they were buying a very good New York bred. The fact that this horse didn't get scooped up for 40 may end up being a bargain, because I think this horse is going to be able to have some type of bright future if we can take a step forward here as a 3-year-old. So I'm going to go the 11 with my top pick. Right outside of it's the 12. That's my second choice at 12 to 1 as well. Impassable odds, Mission Impassable, another very good sire here for in New York bred ranks. I think that the 7 furlongs is the distance this horse wants to be going. We're 2 for 11 over the Belmont turf. I'm a sucker for Louis Cardenas. Like I like this guy. I like that he usually rides his horses pretty aggressive. If you look at that race 2 back, specifically the comments lines, the horse was washed out before the race. So you have an excuse as to why it faded there. I think Cardenas will again put this horse in contention. I like the fact that we're cutting back from a mile to 7 furlongs. 7 furlongs is the distance where this horse has ran his career best buyer multiple times. And this horse likes the Belmont turf as well. So all these things add up to me wanting to find a price here and finding 2 of them on the outside that I think both have tactical speed, which is huge, going 7 furlongs at Belmont.
Well, we're 2 for 2 so far. Definitely, I like both of those, both 12 to 1 odds, which you gotta love. And I agree with you. I think we can try and find a price here. They weren't my top picks, but they definitely did make my ticket. I will say, if I dropped Seafoam in the last race and added the 2 that I was right on the fence with, you and I would have the exact same last 2 legs. So I at least feel good about that one. I went back and forth. I texted you. I had a bitch of a time with this race. I'm
interested to see which the other 2 that you use are, because I know the order of my horses here. You do not.
So my top pick was the favorite, Advanced Strategy. I think that this horse, like you talked about with the 12, is going to be pretty sharp on the cutback. This horse broke its maiden going a mile 16th over this inner turf course. Joel Rosario leaves for a different horse, but Irad is more than capable for riding here. He is actually 2 for 4 with Jimmy Jerkins when he's not at Belmont Park. He's got the one time that they didn't connect together. The buyers are progressing very nicely in this 3-year-old year. This is by Caraconti, who again is not a New York stallion specifically, so you've got that going for him. I think there's a lot to like about this from the connection standpoint. I don't love the fact that Jimmy Jerkins' route to sprint is 0 for 18 or these 0 for 8 in turf sprints, but those are, for my purposes, those are pretty small sample sizes. I'm willing to bypass them because I think this horse is on the improve. What did you think about Advanced Strategy?
This is the last horse on my ticket, last of the picks for me. The first time against winners is a knock for me. Losing Rosario, who seems to fit this horse very well based on the style, even though obviously I love Irad Ortiz. I've talked about that quite a bit on this podcast. This is like the prototypical Rosario horse, right? Like, so you got to wonder if it should be about level, but I'm concerned that this is the type of horse that really needs Rosario to help get in the winner's circle. And I'm a little concerned about the distance. I'm a little concerned it's just a touch too short. You see the turf sprints, the horse was struggling. Now those were at 5.5 and 6 furlongs, so you're getting an extra furlong and a half here. But I'm concerned this horse is going to have too much to do turning for home. I mean, that's really my biggest, the 11 and 12 are both tactical. This horse is going to be a little bit further off the pace. And Belmont, generally, I want horses closer to the pace in the turf sprints. And that's one of the reasons why this horse fell. In addition, it's also going to go off as a favorite and going to get bet. I mean, this is probably 7 to 5, 8 to 5 range favorite, somewhere in there. And that's awfully short price to swallow here in a competitive 12-horse field.
Well, let's talk about the 8-horse we both use. This is the horse that Rosario is sticking with instead of going with the 7. He's with Christophe Clement. We just talked about this. Rosario leaving for the 7, I think, was nice, but again, I think he knew he needed to ride with Christophe Clement on this day. Really, for me, this was a connections play because the buyers don't fit very well here. You look at his race. I mean, this horse likes to come from the freaking clouds to come running and do it. But he did win first time on debut. Christophe Clement is not a great debut winning horse. He likes to run them into shape. And so the fact that, if you see Clement or Shug do that, I'm like, this has got to be a pretty good horse. Hasn't succeeded since then, but this is also an Uncle Mo New York bred. And that was a big reason. That's ultimately what tipped the scales for me onto the 8 and off of the other 2 that you used. Why did you like Uncle George?
So Uncle George was my 4th of 6 here. So this would have been on the ticket for me. This is the next up for me. I think the 7 furlongs is the right distance. I think I can make pretty solid excuses for this horse in the race 3 back where it had a rough start, and the race 2 back where it bumped at the start. And I think 5.5 was too short for it. I think 6 was too short for it. I think 7 is the right distance. I think we're getting to the right spot here for Uncle George to be able to improve with Joel Rosario. And as I mentioned, those 2, I think this horse will be a little bit closer today. If this horse gets out of the gate better at 7 furlongs, which you're generally going to see a little bit slower pace in those 5.5 furlong races, I think you're going to have a little more forwardly placed Uncle George. You get Rosario, who was not on it for the last 7 furlong race, is now going to be on it here for this 7 furlong race. All of those leads me to believe this horse can take a step forward and improve.
Did you? I'm glad you brought it up because I forgot to write it down. I watched the replay when it says rough start in his second career start. This horse got shoved 3 paths out. They break out of the gate, and I think it was the 2 horse went boom, 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 and he just like Junior on the horse. You see him just like trying to hold on, just to even. I mean, you gotta, especially his second career start, you gotta forgive a horse for that. So I'm glad you brought that up.
That's the equivalent of like saying Jamarcus Russell had a rough start in the NFL. Like it's that big of an understatement, right? So it was a train wreck of a start. And now he's still enclosed. He still showed some interest in that race, which I think is a big thing. Now hopefully we get out of the gate clean because we're starting to see a pattern, which is not a great thing to see. But hopefully get out of the gate clean here for Uncle George. He's a little closer to the pace, and then you get the Rosario factor and the 7 furlongs. All those things line up for me.
So the last 2 that you used are the 2 that ended up not making my ticket. The 1 Bad Guy and the 3 Smite. The 3 Smite I thought could be potentially Lone Speed, which is interesting because you do have enough horses that are stretching out here. I think that the 9 Big Wonder is going to make it a little too tough for him to do, but you liked both of those horses, so the floor is yours.
Yeah, you've got some cojones, my friend. You will not have a single horse within 5 lengths of the lead here. So I don't know. That's an aggressive way to play a Belmont Turf Sprint. Smite, I do think is Lone Speed. Smite was my 3rd horse on my ticket. Look, this horse is inside speed on the Belmont Turf going 7 furlongs. That's scary. That enough for me is why you need to use this horse. It has struggles sometimes in holding on. We needed to get a little bit more brave. But if you look at some of the times that it's come out on, it's 21 and 4, 22 seconds, 22 seconds. We're going to go a lot slower than that going 7 furlongs. Generally, this is like a 22 and 4, 23 second pace on these 7 furlong races. I'm hoping that Smite can get brave with Saez aboard, who's clearly going to push him. I mean, there's no way Saez doesn't send this horse to lead. Mm-hmm. So I'll take the horse who's going to be in first at the top of the lane and hope that if someone does catch him, it's one of my horses I'm using. The other horse I included on the ticket here that we haven't talked about yet was the 1 horse Bad Guy. Look, this is another one where it's going to be coming from a little bit of the clouds, but if you forgive the race, if you forgive the race 4 back where it ran at 1 mile and a 16th, all the other buyers fit. Cutting back to 7 furlongs isn't that big of an issue for me. I like the fact that we're switching from Carmouche over to Jose Ortiz. This horse isn't going to be coming from the clouds. That's my biggest concern. But this horse has improved pretty well throughout its 5-year-old season. It's got a career best buyer of 81 going over this distance. And if I'm using, and notice who beat it there. Shiraz beat it there. Impossible Odds ran 3rd there. If I'm using Impossible Odds, I think Bad Guy kind of fits to use here. And we do get that career best buyer going 7 furlongs over the Belmont Turf. So if we can run back to that race, this is a really dangerous horse. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to do that, but we do get a huge jockey upgrade. And I like the price at 8 to 1.
Yeah, he like I said, I was back and forth on both of these. For the bad guy, one of the knocks I had is that he's just he's 0 for 11
Yeah,
with
not
3
great.
seconds and 2/3 at ball. Which yeah, not great, but that claiming 35 race that you brought up back in June, going this course and distance with Raylu Gutierrez aboard, is a decent jockey. But you would think that a half length that he lost by to a really strong performer like Shiraz with or without help, I think is that was pretty impressive. An effort like that with Jose Ortiz aboard. Maybe it works out in his favor. Man, God, I can't figure out a way to fit Smite in but hearing
That's
you
the one
talk
for
about it, I'm
Viking,
like,
man.
man, I might rework this a little bit before the races. You know what I need? I need one of the 4 horses I'm using this race to scratch so I can add Smite. Somebody please just take a bullet for me so I can add Smite.
And Big Wonder was the other one that I was back and forth on.
The 9 horse.
Coming out of the grade 3 Belmont Turf Sprint Invitational, where it didn't run very well, but it's still a good class that it held up. Clearly has shown speed. If you look at what it did 3 back, it won over this course. But I mean, there's races you can go back and point to, but I haven't seen what I need to see the last 3 races out of it to end up keeping it on the ticket. That was the biggest drawback for me. You don't get Cardenas up. So the Cardenas is going somewhere else, which I thought was really interesting because I'm sure he got offered this mount. So for me, there's
going on the 12, yeah,
just enough to leave the 9 horse off. If someone scratched in this race, the 9 would be my next on the ticket.
See, he has I almost want to ask you. I'm not going to, and don't offer it because my answer is going to be no. But I almost want to try and do another repeat bet of who's going to be leading at what would it be maybe by the 3/8 pole, because Big Wonder has a very slightly higher time form early pace rating is 106 versus 104 for the 3 Smite, which is a reason he has run on the pace on the front end before. That's the reason why I thought that Smite wasn't going to get away with a lone lead. But if I sit here and retool this a little bit more and think maybe Big Wonder just, screws up or something. I just can't imagine Napal Chatterpaul putting in this horse into this race and not telling Dylan Davis to go. I think that he's going to look at this and think the only way you have a chance of winning this spot is to send the horse. And I think that the 3 is a better horse than the 9.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you there. And I think there's no way Saez doesn't take this horse to the lead, though. I mean, Saez has went 21-4 with the 3 horse. So yeah. I don't see how Saez relinquishes the lead, and I'll take inside speed over outside speed. And if the 2 of them burn it up, I love my 11 and 12 here. That even helps me more. So because they're the ones who are going to be getting first run here. So for me, and this is one of the reasons why the 9 doesn't end up with a ticket. I don't see any way the 3 doesn't go. So the 9 can't get a lone lead.
Right.
I can see a place where the 3 gets a lone lead. And if the 3 and the 9 both go, it sets it up for the other horses I'm using. So I'm going to save a bullet on the 9. Although, like I said, if the 3 does scratch, then the 9 jumps into almost a must-use category because then the 9 is lone speed. And if someone else scratches, then I'm probably going to include the 9 here just in case the 3 stumbles or something like that at the break.
All right, that's going to do it for this episode of the Magic Mike Show. Thanks for going through the Empire Showcase Day Late Pick 4 sequence at Belmont Park on October 24th with Mike and I. We'll go ahead and give out our tickets one last time. If you're watching the replay on, I guess it's only on YouTube this time. We're not on Facebook or Twitter this time. The tickets are going to be posted right below. Yeah, blame John White. I'll go ahead and give mine out first. I'm going 6, 7, 8 with 1, 5, 9, 2, 3, 7, 7, 8, 11, 12 for $54. Mr. Samich, I was going to take it away from you. Make you try and do it from memory. No, go ahead. Give us your ticket.
Boom. Got it right there.
Oh, you learned. Okay.
50-cent ticket. I'm going to go 3, 5, 7 with 1, 3, 4 with 2, 3 with 1, 3, 7, 8, 11, 12 for 50 cents. That'll cost you $54.
We are, God, I was looking at your ticket and I was like, if I drop the 7, I'm going to add from the 3rd leg, I'm going to add 1 and 3 in the 4th. And we literally would have been in step with both of those. So I don't know. We'll see. I'll think about this a little bit more. I just love Rosario Clement on that 7 horse, but he's not Mr. Buff. That's for sure.
No. Well, he's your top pick. I'm not sure how you're going to justify dropping him. Wouldn't you drop Mr. Buff? Like you literally said, my top pick is the 7. And now you're talking about dropping your top pick.
You're just that good at convincing me to make mistakes.
Oh no! Trying to talk you into winners.
Yeah, that's true.
Luckily, you don't have a Chad Brown you can leave off in this sequence.
God, isn't that the case? Man, I'm so happy Chad's nowhere to be found in this.
Apred's case. This is too low level for him.
He has who is it, War Canoe, but she's like in the 3rd race because they're expecting her to win pretty easily. So it would be a very magic thing to do to eventually drop his top. I think I might have done that once before. I think I've done that one time where I dropped my top pick because you convinced me it was a stupid idea. So to play
Well,
it. So
in this case, it would be a smart idea to drop your top pick. So
it was a dumb idea to play him, is what I meant.
There you go.
So we'll think about that. But hey, this is why you should follow us on Twitter. I'm at Curtis Kellward. He's at SomeHowBomb18, number 1, number 8. If there's any changes to the tickets, we post them out there, because if we're gonna make changes, what the hell's the point of doing this show and then playing something completely different without telling you? So
yeah, or if Magic just tells you the wrong race order, then you got to make sure you follow on Twitter so you can get the updated race order.
God, never again. Thank you, Golden Hour. No, I'm just kidding. Make sure if you haven't yet, or if you weren't planning on, go check out the Blinkers Off interview with John White. I will recommend the podcast version just because there were a little bit of technical difficulties with the video stuff that made it a little hard to listen to, but Jared is expert at editing. He's going to be up all Thursday night trying to make sure that it sounds perfect, but I guarantee you it is going to sound great. So make sure you check that out. Over at racenews.com, I put together the Breeders' Cup Contenders Tracker. I should have had that ready to pull up here. Basically, if you want to know what horses are in contention for the Breeders' Cup at any given point, whether it's today, tomorrow, Sunday, a week from tomorrow, I've got this thing that I'm constantly checking sources. I have 7 different sources I am checking multiple times a day to try and keep this thing as up to date as possible for you guys. Because honestly, if Mike and I were to sit here and do a show on Monday, say, and we're like, hey, we're going to talk about a deep dive on a couple of the Breeders' Cup races, let's look at the Juvenile Turf Sprint, and I go to literally any of those other 7 sources, they're missing a couple of horses. But by taking everything together and by really listening and pounding the ground, everything is right here. It's on the homepage. And I'm telling you, man, there are a lot of good looking horses coming to the Breeders' Cup if this is going to play out this way.
Yeah, it's going to be an awesome 2 days. And there's not that many divisions because of some defections we've had. There's not many divisions that are just like slam dunk horses here that we're looking at that are going to be short prices. So I'm excited for this Breeders' Cup because I think if you got opinions and you're right, you're going to get paid. So it should be a fun 2 days.
Yep, I'm excited for it. Jared is hard at work at getting the inside track to the Breeders' Cup Wagering Guide available. It's available for pre-sale right now. We're working on some touches. Pre-entries, I think, are a week and a half away. We still got a little bit of time, but plenty of time to talk about it. Until then, thank you so much for joining Mike and I in this show. Until next time, I'm Magic.
And I'm Mike.
Good luck this week. And who are you playing tonight, Mike?
Go Eagles. I have a 3.5 though, so you can't get that 3.5 anymore. Now 5 is kind of iffy.
It jumped to 5.
Yeah, if the Eagles can put pressure, if their defensive line in the first quarter is putting pressure on the Giants, play Eagles in game, because that is where the biggest mismatch is in the entire game, is the Eagles defensive line versus the Giants offensive line. So if they are dominating, it's gonna be a long night for Danny Dimes. Those dimes are probably gonna be going to people in green shirts, not blue ones.
Fly Eagles fly. Good luck this week.
The Magic Mike Show, where you hear the experts speak. The Magic Mike Show. Tune into the show every week. The Magic Mike Show. You can trust the show is the bomb because it's being brought to you by RacingDudes.com.